Well, the United States and Israel are preparing for a retaliatory attack from Iran any moment now in response to that Israeli strike on an Iranian consulate in Syria that killed 7 senior Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leaders. The timing and target of Iran's retaliation unknown, but it is expected that Iran will likely try to hit an Israeli diplomatic facility. President Joe Biden has reportedly discussed with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel still has U.S. support for self-defense. Iranian presidential advisor Mohammad Jamshidi posted on X that Iran has sent a message to the U.S. telling the U.S. to stay out of it. In case you missed it at the top of the hour, our enemies are not just across the world, they're already inside our homeland. Too many to remember. Listen again to these individuals residing in my home state of Michigan from yesterday. Here it is.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth." And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
Death to America. Death to Israel. Remember, we invited these people to live in our country. Then they come here and scream "Death to America." Joining me live to discuss former Congressman and Dallas Republican Chair Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Colonel, nice to see you.
Good to be with you, Steve. Kind of disturbing.
Kind of disturbing is right. This is the end of Ramadan, Dearborn, Michigan. This is yesterday. Screaming "Death to America." Many of these folks were invited to live here in this country and then to attack my country. I'm sorry. I find it nauseating. What do you say?
Well, think about this comparative analysis where the FBI was calling for parents to be classified as domestic terrorists because they just want to see their kids educated and not indoctrinated. Yet you have an organization, you have people that are standing there shouting "Death to America," saying that this system has to be erased, it has to be replaced, has to be destroyed, and yet they're allowed to go freely. No FBI investigations, I guess, none coming. So we have a very serious problem here in the United States of America. And when you are dealing with a known recognized terrorist organization, anyone supporting that known recognized terrorist organization here in the United States of America, which on October the 7th killed Americans, still holding Americans hostage, they should be rounded up. They should be declared as domestic terrorists, and they should be either put in jail as the January 6th people were, or they should be deported from this country if they're not citizens.
I agree with that. I want to share a story from over the weekend. I called a good friend of mine. I've known her for years. Jewish woman, probably about my age. Left of center, to say the least, has never voted for a Republican in her life, says she will never vote for Joe Biden again, says she will vote for Donald Trump. Can't believe she's saying it. And the people in her friend group, in her Jewish friend group, the synagogue friends, all say the same thing. There is a problem here for the Biden administration insofar as the Jewish voters are leaving them in droves. And granted, that's a smaller voting bloc than the Arab and Muslim voters, but they're leaving as well because the Biden administration is trying to have it both ways, and they're losing everybody, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I would hope that your friend would not just see this as not voting for Joe Biden, but understand this party that has been overtaken by progressive socialists, leftists, and Marxists, and they are in an alliance with these Islamic jihadists and terrorist organizations. We should not forget that it was Barack Obama who released the 5 senior members of the Taliban from Guantanamo Bay, and then, of course, now Joe Biden enabled them to go back into their positions there in Afghanistan. But also, Obama in 2009 invited senior members of the Muslim Brotherhood front and center when he gave his speech at the University of Cairo. So it is not just about Joe Biden. It's about a party. It's about an ideology that is aligning with Islamic jihadists and terrorists.
Yeah, it's the Council on American Islamic Relations. It's the Islamic Brotherhood. It's all of these organizations that, look, they truly believe death to America. So you look at some of these places where they've gotten this attitude. It's not just Michigan. It's Minnesota. It's other places. I think it's just sad. And this is the problem that we talked about in the first segment here today. When you let anybody come in that have no interest in assimilation, but they want to create their own no-go zone, some would call it, or whatever you want to refer to it as, an area that is, when you ended up with Chinatown, they let everybody in. When you have a little Korea, everybody comes in, right? This is not the case with some of these areas anymore, is it?
No, it's not. And you saw people that came in and they wanted to maintain their culture or some semblance of architecture. But now you're talking about people that are beholden to a philosophy and an ideology that is the antithesis of individual rights, freedoms, and liberties. And they try to hide behind this freedom of religion and free speech when they're actually going out and talking about sedition against the United States of America. When you put this open border that Biden has implemented up there, when we have tens of millions that are coming to this country illegally, and you have millions that are here as gotaways. We don't know who they are, where they are, and we know that there are people that are on the terrorist watch list that come in. We have to be very concerned, as FBI Director Christopher Wray said, about a terrorist activity that's happening here. And again, Iran is a sponsor of Islamic terrorism, and the Iranian.
I wanted to ask you about that, but we lost the lieutenant colonel. I had one more important question for him. I'll see if he pops back up. If not, I guess he's gone. Because the question is that I have to leave you with on this section is, if Iran attacks an Israeli diplomatic outpost or an American diplomatic outpost, what is the response? What is the appropriate response from this government? And will we see it? Something to think about.